One of the cool features about these Sony cameras is the ability to customize the buttons into different memory banks for different functions. So for example, I can have one memory setting for portraiture, one for action, one for panoramas, one for macros, or whatever. And I'm going to briefly show you how to get to these settings very, very quickly for optimal use for different things. So first thing I'm going to show you would be the portraiture setting. So under portraiture setting, the first thing that I'm going to do is, as you can see here, I want to switch to aperture priority. And I'm going to want to open this lens up all the way up to the fastest that it can go. Right now I have a 1.8 lens on here, and that way I have my subject very nicely in focus and the background starting to blur out. Second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the focus mode on S, or single shot, because since she's not going to be moving, I don't need predictive servo moving focus because there's no motion here, and I want to still and freeze it. So we'll put it on single shot AF. And then another feature that's really good for portraiture is eye autofocus. And eye autofocus is something that's unique to Sony cameras. Now let me show you how that works. Under these custom buttons here, I can reprogram those to whatever I want. And I'm going to need to kind of memorize what they are in the order that I think they're most important. So for example, when I'm shooting portraiture, I like to use eye autofocus. Let's go to menu. We'll go 6 tab over down to custom key settings, and I'm going to choose custom button 1, which is the button right next to the shutter, and I'm going to put it on eye autofocus. See, there's all these different things that I can choose, but I'm going to put eye autofocus. Now this is a feature that is not accessible to you in the camera until you choose it as a custom function. But watch how cool this is. The minute I hit eye autofocus, bing, it focuses right on the eyeball. So in order to use eye autofocus, one thing that you have to do is turn off autofocus with shutter. In other words, when you press this button down, it's not going to focus anymore. This is called back button focusing. Now that I have my subject in the shot, if I press the C1 button, bing, it goes right there, and then I can fire, and the eyeball's in focus. This is very critical when you're shooting portraiture, because especially if you're shooting a lot, you'll find that the nose sometimes is in focus, but the eyeball's not. And so eye autofocus is a really key feature for shooting portraiture. So again, you're going to want to be in aperture mode, eye autofocus on, with compatible lenses. It doesn't work with lenses that are through adapters. You'll see that if eye autofocus isn't available, it's typically because that lens is not compatible. And if that's not, then that's still okay, because you can put it on, say, manual focus and then use focus peaking or other methods. Another thing that I'd like to do is when I'm shooting in this mode is I'll go to function, and I'll put the creative style to neutral. Now neutral is the most flattering. Now there is one called portrait, but the portrait tends to punch up some of the tones a little bit and beefs them up, and on some people it will look a little bit not super natural. So you would want to put this on neutral, and then that's basically it. So that would be your settings for when you're shooting portraiture. Eye autofocus. Also, if you have a camera that doesn't work with eye autofocus, then what you can do is put it on face recognition. And that's kind of a cool feature here. So we'll go over here. I'm going to press display 1, 2, 3 times until I get to the dashboard that shows me all of my functions. And then when I'm in here, I'm going to go down here to face recognition. When we turn face recognition on, then what will happen is the camera on its own will find faces. And that is for when you're shooting action portraiture. Now, once I have this set up like that, and I like what I have, then I'll go over and I'm going to memorize this into memory. And we'll call this, so you see this is memory bank 1. And I'll just remember for my own purposes that M1 is for still portraiture. So we'll hit enter. So when I go up here to number 1, you can see in the very top 1 is highlighted. You'll see that all of my functions have become what I last set it at. Autofocus, still shutter, neutral, we're on memory 1, and then I've got my custom button set for eye autofocus and the shutter button off.